Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar. So um, it's such a privilege once again for Strata Green to host a webinar. This is a monthly webinar that we are hosting. And right now we are currently at the Treerings shed, which is amazing. The weather is great. The sun is shining and we can't wait to start right now. Just so we all are aware of the topic today, let me just refresh everyone as well. So today's webinar is around Treerings as a product as well. And we are so privileged today to actually have Treerings' very own inventor, Gary Eglinton, as well as Jessica Clark, business manager of Treerings. Such a privilege to have you both here. And once again, let me reiterate the topic today is actually Treerings, a new way to fertilize. So what we're going to be talking about today, there are two subtopic, which are learn what Treerings are and how they work as annual precision fertilizer placement. And then we're also going to talk about subtopic, the importance of circular economy in future business. So such amazing and also interesting topic. We sure hope that we will be learning a lot of gold today. And let me just let everyone know as well for all the participants, if you would like to ask question or maybe as the presentation is going from Jess and also Gary, feel free, you're more than welcome to straight away type in your question on the Q&A section just underneath the big screen. So if you see below on the screen, you will see Q&A. You can type your question just whenever you want to ask question. By all means, just shoot it through, and then we will be able to answer everything at the end as well. Thank you so much. Yeah, we will start the presentation now, and without further ado, I will hand over the presentation to Gary and also to Jess from Treerings.
Thank you Laura, and thank you Colin for coming out to the Treerings shed today. We'll go through with everyone what on earth Treerings are if they haven't heard of them before, and what we mean by the Treerings shed. I guess we've got a few photos to share with you as well. So welcome to Treerings. Burning question for some is, what are Treerings? So Treerings is a brand new way to fertilise gardens. They're designed to enhance the growth of trees and plants, and is an invention from Gary, my dad, from about 10 years ago, which I'll share with you a bit of the story on how it started and came about. But essentially Treerings, as the photos show there, are compact fertiliser rings made from repurposed materials. So we take commonly available waste materials and put them into a new purpose in the tree rings. And each tree ring provides up to 12 months annual nutrition to a tree or a plant, breaking down naturally into the soil. So it provides precision fertiliser placement, but also when it is breaking down, it's breaking down, providing those nutrients directly around the plant base where they're needed most. So the contents that are in the ring helps to promote vigorous growth, flowering, healthy leaf development, and we've had amazing results with fruit trees in particular as well from customers. So where did it all begin? So as I mentioned, 10 years ago, my dad Gary owns horses on a property and was shoveling the horse manure from the backyard paddock onto his trees and plants to help provide a natural fertiliser, because it's really great at that. And then he got sick of shoveling and breaking his back with a wheelbarrow and decided to go to his trusty shed and play around with the idea of a compact manure ring. So he got an old pop cake tin, I'm sure you're familiar with them, got a stormwater pipe in the middle and started playing around with that compact ring idea. And some of the photos there show some of the early days of troubleshooting and using a one-man manual press and a bit of tarp to dry them out. So very humble beginnings. And so from there he got pretty far along with it, tried all sorts of things in the ingredients, from jello to flour and sawdust, eventually resulting in finding recycled paper. Actually developing a paper pulp was the best kind of binding agent. He got really close to the product that you see today, but then unfortunately Dad went deaf overnight. It was very sudden, completely unexpected, and yeah, he wasn't able to get it back, so that kind of changed his life in a big way. Had to rethink his career as well. He was working in occupational health and safety, couldn't provide training to students or other trainers, so it was literally pen to paper for months for us with Dad, and learning a new way to communicate with him. So that put a hold to the whole Treerings thing for about 2 years. He's since got a cochlear implant on the side of his head, and can now at least have conversation as long as we're in close proximity and speak loud enough. But then yeah, so 2 years it was on hold, hadn't picked it up again until my husband Tyron, who's a qualified horticulturalist and landscaper, was like, Gary, you're really onto something here. I can see how my clients could benefit from this. And it was Tyron that suggested adding, you know, trace elements and NPK to the mixture to help really promote the growth and health of trees and plants. So moving on, another 6 years or so, they were just troubleshooting throughout all that time, tinkering on it. I was still eye-rolling at the idea across the dinner table, saying, stop talking about Treerings. And then it was this photo, I think, that really, I guess, blew us away a bit. We put a tree ring around the plant that was had near on no leaves on it, and of course you can see there the dead grass around it. And we went and checked on it 3 weeks later, and there was this vibrant green grass directly around the ring where the ring was placed, and new growth on the leaves as well. That's what encouraged us to enter the Alpha Innovation Contest in 2019. That's when I jumped on board, because I knew they needed to kind of market this product and turn it into something that's we can share with people and communicate well with. So Tyra and I got up there in the front of a room of 70 PhD students, PhD students with all the other contestants in front of, it was like Shark Tank in front of professors and doctors. And we got to the second round, winning some money to kickstart the business. And I remember following this, at first Dad hadn't heard that we won, so to shake him by the shoulders so he could read my lips like we won first. And that was a surreal moment, because I think it gave us the confidence that other people believed in it. And sometimes when you're so, surrounded in it every day yourself, but hearing and seeing other people impressed and wowed by it really gave us the confidence of, we really need to do something with this, and we need to share this with people.
We're inspired by the product from other countries, which was amazing. That little kitchen table at home where you thought, I think it's gone crazy here, and all of a sudden that little seed which has been sown has grown. Again, people are taking on board, and they could see the value in it.
Exactly, and I think that's the thing, like, as I said, I was eye-rolling for a while until you start understanding it a bit better and getting to know what they're doing here, and that's when you get swept up in the passion of it all. And from that moment I've been in it ever since, and can't look back. And same with all our customers as well. I just blown away with what they're getting. So since then, it took us 12 months to get to market and sell. We did a lot of testing in that time with other customers, and we've now been on the market since, I think, December 2020. 2020. So just over 2 years now. And in that time, we've managed to win a couple of other little awards. Best Small Business at the Darra Machinery Field Days last August, and then also Dad and Tyron's product was awarded a gold accolade at the Good Design Awards Australia, which is an internationally recognised award. So that was very exciting. Tyron and I went to Sydney to...
Looking great, the tree.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I'm a graphic designer by trade, so I had to be on brand with the dress as well.
100%, and also the bow tie.
Yes, we're very much on brand. Can't get away from it. We're also very proud members of the Landscape Industries Association of WA, which is really important to us. And recently were given the authority to use the Australian made and owned symbol. It was invented here, it's proudly manufactured here, operated, owned, and everything we put in the tree ring is all locally sourced as well, whether it's donated from people or sourced from local suppliers.
What are you actually putting in that?
Yes. So the prominently horse manure, which is a great natural fertiliser, again where it's all started. So it's 98% of it is natural fertilising benefits. We then add recycled paper, which is the part that I mentioned was donated. So we have schools and daycare centres donating us paper and retirement homes. And then we add the custom blend of NPK trace element mix as well. And all that together is what's giving us the tree ring.
So you've got that paper will actually stabilise it. Horse manure is a fantastic product for the garden.
Exactly.
As your father said, you need trailer loads of it.
Yes.
I've lived lots of manure in my time, but it's not the best thing. So it can be a bit smelly and sticky, but I know that these don't smell at all like.
No. So, and that was one of the big things, was eliminating the smell, because no one wants smelly fertiliser in the garden. So that part of their troubleshooting over those years was to make sure they eliminated that, which they achieved in the final drying process of the tree rings. And as you say, horse manure, it's the second best natural fertiliser really that you can use out there that's good for majority of species of plants, the first being guano, which I don't fancy collecting bats, so we'll stick with the horses. And it's something that we can readily get. One thing we did about 2 years ago, I think now, is we actually rescued an ex-race horse as well. My mum's regularly breaks in horses and helps people with that, so she helped get the horse back to good health, looked after it, we collected the horse manure, and then we found a new loving home to retire in as well.
It's that whole sort of process of recycling. So from a lot of that horse manure may have gone to waste, and just with composting you actually got it into probably a much easier format. Anybody who's tried to shovel horse manure is not easy.
Yes.
And to that, and actually to spread it, and actually it is quite stinky. So does it go through like a composting process?
So yes, there is a bit of that as well, and also a lot of people that own horses, they can't get rid of their manure quick enough. They're often the ones calling us saying, can you come take this off our hands? We do have to make sure it's the right quality, in the sense that it can't have too many honky nuts in it or too much sand in it. So we do have our little own quality assurance process there, but yeah, so we collect it from there. They then need to heat it up to a certain temperature. It goes through a mulch, that can probably speak a bit more on the manufacturing side, but we get it to a powder form almost, and before it even goes into the actual tree ring making process.
And it sort of looks like it's pressed. It looks like baking a cake, is it?
That's how, well, yeah, old cake tins. Yeah. So, and then
we do a bit of that too.
It must be getting that consistency right. I can still remember when I was a trainee, we had to make little peat pellets for seedlings. The consistency was when it stuck on the tin shed wall, it was perfect. So you must have just the right consistency for it to...
A lot of experimentation goes into getting that formula just right, and it is quite crucial. And we have done a lot of experimentation over the years to get that correct.
Yeah.
And the other part is making it more widely useful in terms of, yes, we use manure as much as we can from local people with their horses, but also we're looking for industry groups like the horse racing industry and that sort of stuff as suppliers. And also paper. The idea is to use paper that people provide to us, but also as the bigger picture, get to use the office paper and things like that. So we recycle that, so it's actually, instead of going to landfill.
And I think by mixing the two together, something like with the NPK ratio, it was 10 to 20, which is fantastic. You've got to also 10 to 12, I think, one of the things you've got is that by the paper, you get a lot of people adding wood chips and things to the gardens that will actually take the nutrients out of the soil. So when you're actually adding those together with the manures, you've got the nitrogen in the manures and the paper counteracts it, holding it together so it lasts longer, it will slowly feed the soil.
Yes.
That's why we say it lasts for 12 months, because the primary purpose is for that tree to hold those nutrients around the base of the plant so they can gradually trickle down and get into the root base where it can use it effectively.
So it's a bit like a slow release compost and fertiliser, and when you've got like to me it's like a living mulch. So a lot of people spreading that bag of compost, which manure can be a bit smelly. You've got some which can blow away. This doesn't blow away; it stays put and gradually just keeps moist and gradually dissipates into the surface.
Naturally biodegrades down, but it's still working. It's still actually creating a new topsoil around the base of that plant. And as the plant grows, you can top that up with another ring in the next year, and that will continue to enhance the growth of the plant. But it also provides systemic protection. The healthier the plant, the easier it is for the plant to combat disease and other things like insects and things like that.
Have you done any research yet into the microorganisms and other worms, so beneficial microorganisms you get just in that area?
We do find, so we do recommend, for example, people who have free-range chickens, for example, in their garden area, that you can seal the tree ring under the top layer of soil. And the reason that we've had to recommend that is because it's obviously drawing the worms and so forth to that area, creating that healthier soil, and the chickens are just kind of, flicking them. They are, so they're finding the good things there, but it's because of, creating that environment that obviously they flourish there.
But we need a PhD student to do some research on the microflora, microorganisms, and that's actually encouraging.
Yeah, we would love a PhD student to do a lot of there's so much that we'd love to learn, to that level, and controlled environments. And one of the other things you were mentioning being a mulch, when we do water these, or when they're watered naturally through rain, the weight of it is about 3 or 4 times the weight it is dry, and that's because it's holding on to that and then releasing it slowly to the soil below.
Have you not tried any wetting agents or anything with it?
Water as per normal is what we say. If you do forget your watering day, the treering's going to look after it. So I don't know about you, but sometimes I might forget the watering day, and luckily, we've done tests where it's a 35-degree day in a heat wave week. You water it the first day, 3 days later, it might look dry on top, but if you lift up the ring, you'll see that it's still damp and hydrating that plant.
That's good, because a lot of times, one of the big problems I've found is people, when they have a lot of sheds, things like sheet manure, you can see the pellets in, and you can come back to them and they still rock hard, unless they kept those need to be kept moist. So the great thing about your product is, because you've got that moisture underneath it's on the soil, it's quite easy to hydrate, and you've got the moisture wicking sort of through it. Where you see the old sheep products, and unless you really salt them, they're there for 12 months. And
also finding with hydrophobic soils, they're particularly good because they're grabbing that moisture in, they're holding it there, and then allowing that to gradually trickle down. Whereas if you just watered them, the water can be running off and running away from the plant. So they've been working very effectively, particularly in the weather we've had recently.
And then you've got the worms actually sort of recycling that into the topsoil as it breaks down. Which is a idea. So something which was gone to waste is now actually in everybody's garden. So
and helping to grow. It's almost ironic that we're using recycled paper as well, which is coming from trees, and then almost putting them back to help grow them as well.
That's a great thing in itself. A lot of people may not know. Probably a lot of the higher subdivisions and developments used to use that spray on, didn't it? Such a stabiliser sand. A lot of that was actually like the paper mache. So is it sort of similar to that in some ways? Have you mixed it up? And that's done. It's got a secret.
No, it didn't really come from that sort of source in that respect. I was mainly coming from the horse manure end and making that more useful. So the paper element only became part of that experimentation, see what would work best to support the horse manure, not the other way around.
So how did you come up with that sort of magic sort of ratio to support the plant development?
It was a lot of
special.
Again, done over the 6 years, as I said. Some of those early photos that I put up was you could see it there were crumbles or whatever, and that's because it wasn't even sticking together at some points with some of the mixture of how much paper do you add, how much water do you add, and also the scale of operation we did at the shed was making one at a time, versus now we have a machine that can do up to 1,000 a day, which also totally challenged, and different compression rates as well. So we had to re-figure out that formula again. So there's definitely a lot of that troubleshooting there. And that's how we've gotten to a point where, and then we've sent, once we're happy with that, that's when we sent it off and got the scientific analysis done to make sure what we've actually produced is something that's going to be beneficial to the garden. And when they came back really good and very positive, they had one thing that they recommended for it, for example. We then did further testing, sent it off again, got it to the point that we needed it.
Just looking at the analysis, you've got 10% nitrogen. So for anybody with watching, whether it's turf, any sort of trees and shrubs, you've got roses, citrus, that's going to give you sort of a good boost. You've got 2% phosphorus in there. So
yes, and you mentioned about earlier we were talking, and you mentioned that being maybe lower. And the reason that we keep our phosphorus low is to make sure that Treerings are safe for native plants as well, which is so important here in Australia. Natives are very hardy above ground and built to withstand our climate, but this is designed to look after them below ground. And then when we actually do customized formulas, for example, the roses, we have the higher nitrogen content to cater towards that specifically as well.
So in most cases, your sort of NPK is going to be sort of the potential for the nitrogen of 2%. So you're looking for citrus, that would just be perfect.
Yes, and I've got on a couple of the next few slides that I'll show you are a couple of flowering plants versus fruiting varieties that we've received direct from our customers as well. So this one here is that they had two large bushes in the same backyard. On the left side is where they deliberately didn't put a tree ring on their hibiscus, and the right side is where they did, and they just noticed a large difference in terms of the flowering and the amount of flowering and how long they flowered as well in comparison to the other one. And this one here is a lemon tree. This lady was about to rip out her lemon tree on the left, and this is in a country town, Darwallinu. Over the course of 5 months, which you'll notice also is over the course of summer as well. And all she had was the tree ring and a drip retic system. She did no other maintenance to it except for that. And 5 months later, her son, who gave her the tree ring, went to snap the photo, and he's like, "Mum, are you sure it was this one? Like, hang on, am I snapping the same tree here?" So that one there was a lemon tree. And this one here, this was actually my sister gave Dad. She goes, "Dad, my plant's dying and I've got to get rid of it." And I was like, "I reckon I can save it." So just over the course of 2 months, you can see the difference in just the colour of the leaves even and the amount of leaves in that.
So you've got sort of like added trace elements and things like sulfur in there, because I know speaking to you earlier, you said it was quite new. It's actually around pH of 7, which is neutral, which I know from experience a lot of manures can be quite alkaline. So that's a really good thing itself.
Yes.
Particularly if you put it in something like a pot, which you want it more on the sort of acidic side anyway. So you've got that whole sort of balance there.
Yes, and these are designed to be, keeping it neutral. That makes it it's performing well in pots as well as in the garden bed as well. And over the last 2 years that we've been selling these, you saw some photos of us at the markets and stuff, but the amount of feedback that we've been getting from customers, and we always encourage them to take a before photo and after, but also detail their experience throughout it. And these are just a few of the ones that I have written down, but one of the ones that I'll pick out here was a lady who she lived in Albany, and she used our rose tree rings on her rose bushes, which were covered in black spot, and she put the tree ring around it, and she reported that there's like no black spot left on her roses, and we don't put it down to the fact that this is fighting disease or anything, but as Dad was saying about the systemic protection and just improving, giving the strength to the plant to fight it and fight it off, as you say.
Like a bit of nice and healthy, keeping that composted.
Yeah.
So is this product sort of more tailored towards a home garden or commercial? Looking
It's good. The actual idea was, yes, it's certainly tailored towards the home gardener, but it's also ideal for regeneration projects, urban reforestation, that type of thing, and also looking at rural regeneration of forest areas and tree planting on those areas too.
Right.
And it was important that the tree ring itself supports all of those types of different environments.
So are these sort of like, is it one size fits all, or?
No, we do have a couple of sizes. I'll jump through just so I can show you the
Yeah, while Jess is preparing the slide for that, I would love to invite for all the registrants, everyone that's actually on here, if you want to shoot through any questions from all the conversation that we just had and are still having, go for it. So just the Q&A section underneath, and we'll answer your questions later.
Yeah, so to answer your question, we have the ability to do 3 different sizes at the moment. So we've got the large size, which we do in 2 halves, which is, we have some councils testing these at the moment for their plantations. Our regular one is the one that others might be familiar with. That's the one we started with to grow first, because that was best suited for the residential gardener. And then we've recently had some councils testing the small ones here as well. And what you'll notice on the regular one, you should be able to see it well, there's a perforated line in the middle of it, just on the other side, and that's where you snap it in half and place it around the base of the plant. And that was important when we got the mould done, just to make it easier to apply it. Yeah, so
you don't have to try and slide it off.
Very hard to do that.
Exactly. So
I'm quite surprised when you look at the thickness. They're actually, we talk about mulches and decent sized mulch, and I'm assuming once it's moist, it will expand a little bit.
Yeah, very. Would you say how much it stands when moist?
Yeah, 60 mil.
Which is a fabulous, depth for a mulch. So it's going to reduce weeds as well. So it's going to cut down your weeds as well as fertilising your soil. So particularly around the base.
You got some holes here too.
Yeah, when you're talking about sort of commercial version like parks and gardens and rehabilitation, big problem they always have is around trees and things is whippersnippers damage them. You've got tree guards, you've either got a spray around them. So by putting leaves around them, you're actually going to negate a lot of that as well.
Well, Dad's got a solution that is for
we're looking at
whippersnippers in particular as well.
This is a solution we're looking for. This is a biodegradable plastic. Completely biodegrades over a period of time into just water and carbon dioxide. But the idea is actually a rigid film called PLA, polylactic acid, and it actually is quite reasonably solid, so you could whippersnip up with that without any
totally
issues.
Biodegradable.
But eventually it will decompose back into the soil, same as a tree ring. And we're looking for that as a solution to particularly the councils that have been asking for that, as something they can put out in the environment, get the rings in place, put those around it so people can trim up to it, but it will actually still feed the plant, enable them to water more effectively directly onto the plant, hold that water and moisture there, and but still meet their aims or their objectives for maintenance. Time is actually whenever we're trying to look at super fertilizer, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And using biodegradable products back into the soil. So if I was like a buying 1 or 2 on the home garden, they'll have to buy them in certain rooms, like to buy 1 or 2, can buy them in 14,000 as well.
So essentially you can see behind us we've got them packed in packs of 4, and that's typically for the residential gardener. For larger orders, such as large plantations and so forth, we would actually provide them unwrapped. Even though this is biodegradable wrapping, but obviously unwrapped is a lot easier to work with. And that's how they'd be provided on pallets in larger numbers. So we can, as I said, from before we were doing 1 a day by hand, which we're mustering up 45 a day. And now we can at least, with our new machine, newish machine, we can do up to 1,000 a day. And last November as well, we bought a large dryer. So we, rather than 2 weeks drying time, we can now do it within 12 hours. But also have that control aspect. You're talking about weeds or seeds before, which can be present in horse manure sometimes. And our way of controlling that, eliminating that to a certainty is using the drying machine and heating it up to a certain temperature.
Yeah, that's always one of the things with composting is actually at 60 degrees C with the moisture. We kill the root of the root seeds and a lot of the bacteria. So that whole process, so you don't have to worry about anything to bacteria, root seeds. So you can put shit manure down, and then forever and a day, you can reform up the ryegrass and everything else. It just drives you absolutely crazy, isn't it?
Yes, and that's why it was really important for us to be able to control that. And so this gives us the ability to heat it up to that 60 degrees or 63 degrees temperature, which was really important as well. But yeah, I'll just run through. I think we covered a lot of these anyway, but yeah, I think we've gone through all of that and the different sizes. It's also got the environmental benefits as well, which using obviously recycled materials, the fact that it naturally degrades into the soil, keeps the nutrients at the plant base, prevents overspray, underspray, and runoff to water sources, which is so important. And we also make sure we're a very small business still, and we're small scale, but we put we have this environmental hat on with everything we do, and that includes packaging as well, using recycled paper for our flyers or biodegradable clean wrap.
So just with top was water runoff. Anyone on the course of playing into wetting soil. So the issue with the boost posting. By putting these around the base, we keep the moisture there, stop it from obviously reducing erosion. So it would be great in scenarios, even in the week that way, that terms of erosion, you can actually keep it in that area. You are on the coast of
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And then all that leads to one of the other topics that we're going to cover today, which is about the circular economy aspect and why sustainability is so important and essential in our eyes in business going forward. And we feel we are trying to implement that completely in our operation, by eliminating waste, putting it to a sustainable purpose. And it's also in the final leg is actually restoring nature and going back into the earth. And it has this, all the materials we use is something that is produced very ethically, and then we are putting back into the environment as well. So circular economy, there's two different types of cycles, biological cycle and technical, and Treerings is very much that biological cycle, where you have the product that we manufacture, it's consumed by our customers, but the way that it's consumed is put back into the earth. And then we go around using animals as well, as we're not going to run out of horse manure anytime soon, and it's a thing it's a naturally produced fertiliser, which is really important as well.
So are these horses in the field or stables or a mixture of both?
Yeah, so a bit of a mix. It started the ones in our backyard, then the neighbours, and then mum's friends. So Dad and Gary and my mum Pam were presidents of the WA Paint Horse Association for a number of years, so they have a lot of contacts with the horsing industry. But then, as I mentioned earlier, we've had a lot of just call us up and say, can you take this manure off our hands? So we haven't had to chase it yet. We've got our key supplies at the moment, but there's definitely no shortage in Australia for horse manure.
It's also about improving the landscape as well. I've noticed on our own property that it's been hit so hard with this lack of rain, and the climate has been changed over the years that we've just been there. This is a tool for climate change, and this is a tool which is, whilst a lot of people talk about it, the governments talk about it, but this is about putting a tool for climate change in the hands of everybody, the house owners, the gardeners, the people in the urban environments, that they can really do something about growing trees and growing their plants and shrubs and helping their environment. And this is a tool for them to do it.
And it's not just about planting a tree or growing a tree, but it's also ensuring that the soil is has the, you know, with pollution and stuff, and you know, with all the housing develops and stuff, soil is just, there's nothing left nutrient wise in the soil. So we need to nourish that as well as you know, go beyond just planting a tree, but actually look after what's going on below ground.
One of the most important things I always say to everybody is that you need to improve the soil. Put a smaller planting and improve the soil. Put your money into that. What you're doing here is you're nurturing that soil. You can put a smaller planting and you keep it warmer in winter, cooler in summer, more moisture, and that humidity is going to encourage that plant to grow much better. As you said, that whole thing, the whole ecosystem is going to be much better. You're creating a little microclimate.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, a controlled microclimate. So we thought we'd just briefly go, I guess some might be interested into how to install a tree ring.
The application is simple. You take a tree ring and you snap it in two along the pre-cut lines. So you place it at the base of the plant. You water to settle it in, and then you walk away.
There's nothing harmful or toxic in the tree ring. You know, we have videos of my little 6-year-old niece helping Tyron install them as well. We've gone to schools who have helped put them in there. It's definitely a safe product, as well as no smell, light, easy to install. So it's, you know, very easy application in that sense.
Actually, we've got a young little problem. She's into socks at the moment.
Great question.
Yeah, so
great question.
I know manures and things. She's not really into digging manures and things, but I know some dogs have manures and would be digging.
It is completely safe for animals, but it will make a mess. So our puppy, when we were staying as 5 months old, we put trees in the garden. She helped us put them in there, and then she thought, thanks for the new toy, and absolutely destroyed it over the deck. And so she made a mess, not harmful to her, and they're not interested in consuming it, being manure, but they just have a lot of fun. So what we recommend for anyone with cheeky puppies is conceal it under that top layer of soil. Don't let them see you put it in, and they won't even know it's there because it hasn't got the smell. So since divert them elsewhere. But yes, if they don't see you put it in and it's concealed, they have no reason to even look. Yeah. And then I don't know if there's any questions on the compacts before we jump into the liquid blend.
If you do have questions, do not hesitate to straight away type on to the Q&A section. And while waiting for that as well, we actually have question that is frequently asked, and we can also run through that.
Yeah, so from compact fertiliser rings, we then have gone into the liquid blend, another invention from the team. But essentially, our liquid blend is completely a byproduct of tree rings. So it's it's part of what's collected in the tree rings compact manufacturing process. So we were collecting this water as part of the process, and rather than we were recycling the water in it, but now we're collecting it to produce this tree rings liquid blend, which is a non-hazardous liquid fertilizer. Again, we've managed to eliminate the smell from this as well, safe to handle. And it's literally tree rings, but in liquid form.
It's like a liquid compost.
Yeah.
With any added nutrients?
Yes, that's fully supported with NPK, the essential elements they need, and trace elements as well. So it's a full bottle, if you like, as a liquid, but it feeds the plants, feeds the lawns, and does all that the right way. So, and the best part of it is the smell. So there's a lot of those other liquids certainly do put a lot of odor on the lawn. It's a good example here.
Yes. Just in a 14-day period, and this was only the Treerings liquid blend used on the grass, diluted 8:1 ratio, and you can see the difference just in 14 days. And I think, you know, with all the feedback we're getting of the tree rings from customers and so forth, and also knowing how natural and safe it is to use in gardens, then going down the liquid option as well is we just want to make it more flexible and versatile into how it's applied, and depending on its purpose as well.
Yeah, and that's your NPK 12-2-10,
yes.
The same thing here on your lawn. And I think the lawn addicts on the Facebook group and all those guys are looking at that and just saying, I'd be interested in that particular lawn. And I think a lot of people, even looking at lawns, have gone for liquid compost now. And most of the major companies have been really, you've got a liquid compost which has been boosted with strengthened NPK and trace elements. And really you can see the benefits to the soil because you've got those liquid manures and compost in it.
And it's it can be used in irrigation. It can be used as a foliar spray. It's
so would you can absorb through those? Would you recommend washing it off the leaves? And I'm assuming you have to be careful in warm, sunny days.
Not so much. It's one that's just again, it's still fully non-hazardous, safe to use, and as part of your natural watering environment, or if you're looking after parks, gardens, golf courses, things like that, it's just part of the normal process you use with liquids. But I would suggest a lot safer, and certainly the feedback we're getting from the people are saying, smell it's a lot better. You go out and play straight away and then get out and use it.
So are they using it like a big sort of fertigation green spray, or is that how they're using it? Or use it in the watering campaign?
We've done that ourselves. So we typically have it in 1,000-litre IBC containers, which we recycle. Like they bring back and we will replenish. We do have a 20-litre option, but it's generally the larger scale that we've been producing it for at the moment.
So can those people at home get hold of this? That'll be the thing. The series looks like that, I want some of that.
I used straight from watering cans and things like that, but I did also try it with the Venturi spray-on type thing, and that works effectively.
The dilution rate in the watering can.
It's around about 8 to 10 to 1, roughly. So when you've got an old 9-litre watering can, a litre of that in there and fill up the can, that's fine. The 2-litre one with the Venturi spray-on type system covers about 150 square metres in about 2 litres. So does a nice good size spray. That lawn that you see there in the pictures there, that's about 2-litre cans, if you like, used as a spray-on. And it worked very well for that. And the results so quickly, absolutely regret with that, is even with the mold twice as part of that.
And those microorganisms which will be in there actually help make the plants more resilient. And a lot of people don't realise things with that turf, that potash, and it actually makes them again more cells thicker and more diseases. So particularly during sort of we're getting into autumn soon. Tomorrow, so autumn, crazy, isn't it? So we're getting into autumn. Once you get into late autumn, a lawn fertiliser with extra potash will actually help it through the winter and pick it up. So I think we've got a good thing in the marketing.
Yeah, thank you. That's good, and I mean that takes us to the end of what we've got here. But of course, happy to keep the conversation flowing if anyone has any questions about either products.
Definitely, we are still opening the chat section if anyone wants to ask question live. Just tap it on the Q&A section. While we also will answer it live. Anything at all, just tap it straight away. We will answer live and in real time. While waiting for that as well, for a question that we will be able to cover, and I think a lot of people will find it beneficial. So we can tackle the frequently asked question as well. Maybe we can start with the difference. How about the difference between the standard rose and natural Treerings blends?
Yes, so we currently have 3 compact tree ring blends available. One being the standard, which is the one we've spoken about majority today. I did mention the rose ones, which have the higher nitrogen and phosphorus content just to help promote the large flower growth and and so forth. But we also have a natural variety, which essentially, Dad might be able to explain this a bit further, but it's a 100% organic option for gardens, just because some people have preference of fully natural and organic in their gardens. We want to make sure we're able to provide that. So replace the small chemical amount with blood and bone. Did I cover that right? Anything to add?
But it still includes the essential trace elements and things like that as well. So it's still an enhanced organic product, but all natural. And that's the important part. Fertilisers. And
but we're talking less than 2% in the standard as well, with the in comparison to the horse manure. So you've got the horse manure and only 2% that makes up the trace element mix and the NPK blend and so forth.
Yeah, it's really. However, the type of material is the organics are only slightly less than our standard version, if you like, in terms of nutrient level. So we've had all these analysed, I think now about 8 times at the various laboratories and things like that. And we have to ensure that not only we're meeting nutrient requirements, but we're getting those levels right for the types of plants that we need to apply to. And that's why I'm happy to say with the standard, we're going to do natural, natives, we can do standard plants, shrubs, trees, and have been fantastic for citrus. The rows for those really big flowering plants, the camellias, azaleas, and things like that.
Wouldn't use them on natives,
yeah.
though.
And not for native. And the organics for people who want to grow gardens or varieties for their consumption as well. So it works very well.
That's good. Particularly things like roses and salt and things. So having a sort of slower release form, you've got that as well. Putting the reduced supply of the soil as well. So what happens if the guys decide I've got a group of plants and I want something specific? Could I come to you and actually make me a particular blend? Is that possible?
Yes, we can customise. So I guess the way we always thought of it is for larger scale projects, there may be an area that is particularly reporting high levels of something in particular that needs to be balanced out, or is there something lacking? And that's where we can customise the tree ring to put in the tree ring what is required or lacking in that soil. So if it's very, you can go for that.
No, you're quite correct.
Yeah.
And the idea is to look at the type, get an analysis of the soil types, and then we can match that to the nutrients they actually need in that environment. And a lot of that was is geared towards something like the mining environment. We're doing mine regeneration, like the Pilbara and those sort of areas where there are very specific soil needs to regenerate those areas that are replanting with natives and all that sort of stuff. So very easy for us to actually just have formula seeds and into a large amount.
Does that mean for any other different shapes and things like that?
Not different shapes per se, but we have been looking, we've had some people inquire about vineyards in particular as well. Just they provide us what they need in the soil to produce a good grapevine, essentially. So there's that, I guess, that option there. But yeah, in terms of sizes, we definitely have the ability to add different sizes if the need came for it. Obviously not for the residential gardener, but larger operations. It's just a matter of creating the new mould, essentially.
So you'd be recommending sort of replacing these as well?
The tree ring? Yes. You can go.
I'd say they're useful for the first 2 to 3 years of life of the plant. So I do follow-ups each year. Once they're past that, they're usually pretty good. But what I'd look for is for the health, starting with stress, was getting some diseases like rose, black spot, and that's really been reintroduced to the tree ring to them. So they can use them throughout the life of the plant.
Well, you can have a very mature tree that you've had for years and years, and maybe it's just not performing at its best and needs that boost. So, you know, we've had an evergreen, and it's alive, it's fine, it's doing what an evergreen should do. We've got a tree ring around it, and not only did the height increase dramatically, but the color of the leaves and the vibrancy of that, you could see that it was just so much happier. And it wasn't exactly in our minds necessary at the time to put it on there, but then seeing the result just shows how, a different environment down there can influence what you're seeing.
So particularly, we recommend for people to nurture the year. You've really got a living, fertilising, nurturing.
Two birds with a stone, and there's a mulch crisis, comes in handy.
I think that was something I learned, particularly from my horticultural studies, is when you look at a plant, the idea is to analyse what sort of nutrients does it really need in that respect. So the different colourings on the leaves, the different shapes and things like that, or any particular diseases tell you that sort of nutrients can be useful for it. And that's what we try to incorporate within the tree ring, so that it would be enhanced and fight diseases and allow the tree to systemically perform.
So you can tell this anywhere in WA or Australia or in the world, there isn't. Whatever soil type you've got, you can really tell and fertilise them.
We have, the sandy soils along the coast. We've got the clay in the hills, like just in WA alone. And Deb was mentioning the Pilbara, but it's so diverse in what we're working with just here. So obviously the standard product is something that is trying to be a universal, solution in one respect. But if there is that need to really dial it down, we can address that.
That hospital is going to build up sandy soil. It's actually going to open up sandy soil and that's going to make it drain through the
I'm also looking at, something like the East Coast has had a drenching this year, flooding everywhere. So a lot of the nutrients we wash out of the soil over there. So they're going to be really needing something like this to get their growth back in their gardens and their on the farms and tree plantings projects and things like that, because it won't be in the soil. It won't be there for a long time. It will take a long time for the soil to naturally replace it. Treerings are going to be very useful for that type of approach. So the west, with the difficult old sort of soils and all that, absolutely great. And here for the east coast, where they're struggling and with that flushing out and dilution and that.
We do have a few customers over there too.
There are two questions that I actually find very, very interesting. That was in
yes. So touch on it a little bit briefly, but essentially we have a drying machine that we only received late last year, and the purpose of that was not only to speed up our drying process dramatically, but one of the critical things was the ability to heat to a very controlled temperature of the tree rings. So the tree rings, we go through a process of preparing the materials that go in the tree ring. Then we press the ring and it comes out in a dampened state. We then put it into the drying machine for that final drying process and have the ability to heat it up to above 60 degrees Celsius, which is what we need to ensure that any harmful bacteria or seeds are killed in that process, and it gives us that quality control.
And the next one as well. This is actually a question that I also want to ask. Do they actually work when we've broken them up, like sprinkle on veggies?
Yes, we do have a lot of people that have given that a go. We have had people say they've had success from that. Obviously, what we're producing here is a compact ring that's providing precision fertilizer placement to one plant. So I guess it defeats a few of those other benefits when you do break it up. So it's not the intent, but I do get some excited customers come to me and say, I broke it up and put it in the veggie patch, and they're going, great. And that's awesome. I'm glad. But the idea is that the point of the ring placed around that plant is to concentrate and nourish that particular one and get the best results from that. But yeah.
Yeah, if it would get broken by somebody's with the snipper, it'd be ideal.
It's still got to work, yeah. But yeah, and if anyone's wondering where you can get them from, like we're so excited to have Strata Green on board as a stockist. And so if anyone is interested in stocking or using Treerings themselves, then is it info@stratagreen.com.au. The email.
That's right. Jess is killing it right now. The email is info@stratagreen.com.au. If you have any other question, maybe questions as later on, you think about this webinar, like, oh, okay, webinars ended. You can always email us. We can forward it through to Treerings team, to Gary, and also to Jess to answer. Once again, it's info@stratagreen.com.au. And if you want to purchase Treerings, available on our website right now, straight away, go ahead, browse stratagreen.com.au, and if you type Treerings, pop up straight away. So you're super easy to just get it and purchase it online. But again, if you have any other questions, we are contactable from info@stratagreen.com.au. Before we wrap it up, any other more questions coming from you, Colin?
Well, I think the whole process of recycle from manure, which is very, very messy. Very, very messy, very stinky. Being a gardener, I don't mind getting manure. But for a lot of people, it tend to put them off. We know the benefits from microorganisms, including soil structure, all of those things, and to have it in a form which is easy to handle, easy to put down, not messy, not smelly. As I said before, Christmas party down the pot, so anything inside.
Yeah.
It's ideal. Particularly if you've got pot plants at home. It's one of those things you can put it around quite easy. So I think to make things easy for people, it's that kiss of the keep it simple, stupid for a lot of people.
Yeah, 100%.
You can do that, and I think this really does that very, very easily. And you're adding microorganisms, bacteria, compost to improve the soil structure, and you're adding the nutrients to really get the ball. So it's a great little product, which we're so glad we came up with them. Usually it is simple things, which are, you should have got on Shark Tank, I think, all those things.
We felt like we were
I think, and it's a thing is, and you're recycling. You've really gone the whole hog as far as from all your packaging, everything you think of, even to actually wrap around it and biodegradable, which is very, very forward thinking. So the value itself shows the ingenuity. It's a great slide. I've been a teacher, a lecturer at TAFE. Everything we've talked about, we always just get them up to the right depth. You're doing all of those things and you put them on the survey. So I should say we can practice.
Yeah. Good stocking stuff.
Yeah, it's great.
Definitely.
So I could have some of those Christmas time.
Yeah.
I can literally see Treerings with fairy lights around it. It's pretty. I want them. But talking about this no smell situation, I need to bring this up. My neighbor fertilizing his garden with manure, and the whole house and the house next to our house can smell it. When I came over here last Friday to just, hang around with Tara and also Jess, I came back to the office, everyone was like, you don't smell like a thing. I'm like, yeah, thanks. Thanks for Treerings.
We're surrounded by them and you can't even in the whole shed. You
100%.
don't smell. Yeah.
Well, I can put an example of that. When I was working for the city of Rockingham, probably nearly 30 odd years ago, we spread some manure, and unbeknown to me, probably about half an hour later, the boss came out and complained because we'd spread, and he had a little air vent, which was neat, and it was sucked in his air vent right into his office. And he came out and complained about all the manure. So none of that here, which is a good thing. So
100%. And if you have a question always, how do I take part to, support sustainability for the environment? I think using Treerings will be one of them, definitely, because it just covers a lot of aspects as well. Let me just double check if there's any more question. Not at this point. For those who maybe just joined in a little bit late and we're almost wrapping it up right now, don't worry, because you already registered as well. We will have the recording ready and then we will send it through to you and you can catch up with the session. If you have any other questions later on as well, you can email to info@stratagreen.com.au and we can forward to Gary and Jess to actually answer your question as well. Before we close, Jess and Gary, any other additional comments?
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, no, thank you for having us, and we're just excited to be working with you guys and appreciate all your support as well. So we'll grow together. So
I think it's great to have a family business so that you can see those generations continue on. So, which is always a nice thing. So it's hard to work with your family sometimes as in business, you know. As you've said over time, but it's great now you've got that continuity and hopefully there'll be many generations and we'll see Treerings all around the world. I'm looking forward to
that. And I do see that as very much an intergenerational thing, that we do pass that knowledge down and people can use it and they can pass that on as well. Going to be great. Hang in there, kid.
Well, that made me almost teary. But that was fantastic, guys. And maybe Chris and Karen want to say hi. But the whole team is here. They're just fantastic people to work with. And again, if you have any question, info@strataggreen.com.au. Otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in, and thanks for all your questions and just being with us today. Thank you, Colin, for joining me as well. And once again, for Treerings team, thank you for Jess and also Gary for this session. Till next time, we should do it again, I guess. Yeah. It was fun. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Oh, I think they're amazing.
I just simply break it, put it on the ground, that's it.
And I've had avocados for the first time since using Treerings.
Treerings are compact fertilising solutions rather than a bag of powdered substances. They provide precision fertiliser placement, meaning it works directly at the base of the tree where the nutrients are needed most. It's a simple once a year, set and forget fertiliser.
So what are Treerings? A combination of horse manure and slow-release trace elements, nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, known as NPK. These macronutrients are critical in defining a healthy soil balance.
Horses are poor processors of food, meaning what they leave behind is one of the richest nutrient manures in comparison to other animals. While horse manure in its natural form has been used for centuries as a fertiliser, it is still missing a few other key ingredients. Treerings is a repackaged form with all the missing ingredients added.
The application is simple. You take a tree ring and you snap it in two along the pre-cut lines. So you place it at the base of the plant. You water to settle it in, and then you walk away.
When placed around the base of the tree, plant or shrub, tree rings initiate a combination of quick growth and slow release fertilisers. As the tree ring breaks down, it stimulates bacteria and microorganisms that assist the plant in taking up nutrients required for growth and development. Each tree ring includes the necessary trace elements to enhance the health of the plant and promote flowering, fruits and leaf development. Using regular watering cycles, the tree ring helps retain water at the plant base where it is needed most, preventing evaporation and nourishing the plant for longer.
Definitely recommend tree rings. I gave them to a whole heap of friends and family as Christmas presents.
Since I've been using them, my garden has just been booming.
They're cheap, which is amazing, and I just think the results that you get for the amount of effort that you put in is unbelievable.
You sort of just snap it in half, put it around the tree, and you're done.